All right. Welcome, everybody. It is Sunday, October 18th, 2020, and we're really excited to be with you today. I am also very excited to have the amazing Robert Norris join us again as part of the Indivisible Lege organizing team. He's going to walk through a very important item that is happening, that has been happening, but is definitely continuing to happen, even though voting has started. And we've had amazing early voting numbers so far. We're going to emphasize and talk about phone banking today. Robert, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day outside. It's not so hot and um, just couldn't be better. How about you?
Awesome. Yeah, similarly, we had some good time outside in the sun at a park. No one was around us, so there's that social distance still happening. But yeah, it was great and definitely excited to be on this with you today. So let's dive into this discussion we have planned for everybody around phone banking.
Okay. Well, so I'm going to talk about kind of the background aspects of a phone bank, and then we'll talk about, anybody's participation in a phone bank and kind of what are the keys to making it successful. All right. So let's just ask the question, what is a virtual phone bank? Well, basically, it's where a campaign sets up and manages a voter contact program in which the volunteers call people from a list. Now, during that call, volunteers go over a campaign related script. Then they record relevant data about the call. In other words, their interaction with the person they're calling. That data is then used for campaign purposes, such as identifying candidate supporters and non-supporters, and then those that are undecided. So what exactly is the benefit of virtual phone banks? Well, the advantage is they allow volunteers to make calls from home, but while they're doing it, they can participate with volunteers and campaign staff. This allows volunteers to, avoid personal contact, but they can still benefit from collaboration with people that have the same political interests. Also, really the only thing a volunteer needs is a cell phone, a computer, or a tablet. Now, from the campaign's point of view, a phone bank is really one of the most effective ways to get people to vote for their candidate. And this is especially true during this election, since door-to-door canvassing is not an option because of the COVID pandemic.
I think that's huge when you talk about the benefit of virtual phone banks, especially in the environment that we're in. Um, just to emphasize that, we don't have the typical door-to-door engagement, and I know that's a different type of experience, knocking on people's doors and getting a chance to talk to people about a campaign, or even if it's just more getting out the vote campaign. And so phone banks have been the go-to item for volunteers and different efforts to reach out to voters during the environment we're in.
Right. So let's talk about how phone banks actually work. Well, to set up and manage a phone bank, the campaign staff has to decide what are the objectives for that phone bank. Once they've decided that, they draft a call script that's based on that. They decide the kind of dialer system that they're going to use. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And they decide who their target audience is. Then the staff has to recruit volunteer callers, and they can get that information from various sources, usually their own candidate's website, where people can indicate they want to volunteer. Then once those volunteers are recruited, they're supposed to choose their phone bank shifts, which generally are about 2+ hours. So they've chosen their script, their shift, and then they indicate to the campaign on a webpage what shifts they want. That scheduling is usually done through an automated system called Mobilize. So once all that's done, the volunteers there's an introductory Zoom meeting, volunteers are trained on how to place calls, how to use the script, and how to record responses from the people that they call. Then after the calls are made, volunteers in another Zoom meeting, they talk about their experiences with the other people in the meeting as well as campaign staff. And that meeting sometimes gives the staff the chance to sign up volunteers for future phone banks.
And I think this is where people have a lot of questions in their mind when they are thinking about or considering a phone bank. They, as humans, when we don't have a reference to an experience, you know, we feel very cautious and we don't know if we want to actually do it. And I think the breakdown that you provide really hopefully helps people understand that there's a lot of support. It doesn't take a whole lot for you to get involved in phone banking. But before you get started, there is this support, like you mentioned, the Zoom trainings, being able to do it together with a group so that you have that interaction. You know, you're not just clicking on a link and then you have all these instructions to read and you're off on your own. You're really in an environment that is designed to help support you. And so those questions that you have, that we all have with new experiences, this really helps you be successful in this effort.
I think that's true. Now, one more technical thing, you know, there are a couple of overall dialer systems. Basically what a dialer system is, it's a software platform that helps run the phone bank. Generally, the most common system is called the Open VAN, Voter Activation Network, I think. The Open VAN, which is run by the Democratic Party. And theirs is the VPB, Virtual Phone Bank. Now, this VAN-based system, what it's going to do is once the volunteer is logged on, it's going to show the volunteer the person, their name, the person they're going to call, the phone number. Sometimes they'll provide some background information at the top about what precinct they live in, their congressional district. And then it's got the script right there on the screen. So the volunteer goes over that script. While they're doing that, they record the results from their conversation. Then when that's all done, they save it, they hang up and they go to the next call. Now, one thing that people are encouraged to do is use Google Voice. Why use Google Voice? Well, that blocks the caller's phone number so that if you used your personal cell phone number, you leave yourself open for, you know, going on voicemail, and then somebody that you called can call you back at like, you know, 10 p.m., which happens. So if you use Google Voice, then your call phone number is blocked. So that's just a safeguard. Now, the other system is called a dialer. In fact, during the 2018 election, I was using what was called the Beto dialer. Now, what that does is it automatically generates calls for the volunteers. In other words, you go through this system where you log into it, and you're then connected by your computer, and it's automatically generating calls for the volunteers. So it's doing that, and then it pops up and it says, okay, now, you know, you're going to be talking to this person. So you answer them, you identify yourself, and you go over the script, you record the results, and then you end the call on the screen, not on your phone. And then the dialer, you know, goes from there and starts searching out and providing the next call. So it operates very rapidly.
Yeah, and that's the experience that we've heard with some of the efforts who have the benefit of having a dialer system, is that you're just able to get through so much more because you're having the assistance of that program, and you're really being activated once a call is being connected. And so that you're able to really engage on that point. And so, you know, not everybody is using the exact same tool out of the toolbox or tool belt that is available for phone banks. And so I just love how, you know, that encouragement. You know, if you don't have a dialer, then that Google Voice, which, you know, Google assigns a number to you that people will see, is such an important way just to, you know, stay safe and keep your information from being, you know, put out to a bunch of people you really aren't too familiar with who they are. And so So yeah, those different opportunities and different approaches, there's solutions for either one. But that dialer effort, efforts that have a dialer have been super impactful.
Yeah, that's right. And when we get down to it, the Beto O'Rourke Powered by People one is now doing huge efforts. Like I think one last week they had 2,000 volunteers on it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a big deal.
Yeah, Monday before in-person early voting, 2.9 million calls made, which is just amazing because there's 16.9 registered voters in the entire state of Texas. And so that's a huge, huge chunk that they were able to call.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really great because they're helping out the state house races. We'll get to that in just a minute. Now, what a lot of people were, always wonder, well, what is the target audience for these phone bank calls? Why are we calling these people? Well, it really depends on what the campaign wants to accomplish in that phone bank. At the very beginning, it's, sometimes there's getting the vote out, getting people familiar with the candidate, but it's also a certain amount of what they call list cleaning. And, they're getting all these voters, all this information from Van, but that can be like 2 or 3 years old. And during the interim, people have moved, the phone got disconnected, you don't know what's happened. So you get all this, all this data on people, but it's not really correct. So you need to, the phone bank is kind of cleaning up and identifying, these are the real people that are out there. So that's the initial part. And then there's been a couple of sort of goals or target, objectives in these calls. One of them was where people over 65 were being called to talk to them about voting by mail, because that's the one thing that nobody disputed, was that people over 65 are eligible to vote by mail. So campaigns, I would be in a phone bank where the only people we were calling were over 65. And we were calling them about voting by mail, why it's safer, why it's convenient. I will say at that point, there were concerns about the Postal Service. And, that's certainly a concern. That's why people are dropping off their ballots now. But at that point, we were just talking about the safety involved. The other thing was voter registration, which is like super important. So we would call people and we could talk to them and pull up the Secretary of State's website, where we could find out, is that person actually registered to vote, and are they registered to vote at their current address? So, volunteers could look that up for the person they're calling, which is a big service. And then, if they're not registered or not at their current address, then, we could go through a process where we're either helping them out with everything on the application except their signature. So that would get mailed to that person. They could put their signature on it with the registration and submit that to their county. The unfortunate thing is we don't have online voter registration. So this is kind of the way to handle that. So, those are two things: vote by mail, voter registration, and then of course there's get out the vote. But I'll let you, if you have any questions about that or comments, go ahead.
Yeah, and
Alex,
yeah, definitely. And when we talk about the target of these, the target audience, there's definitely these different efforts. And one thing that's been impressive that we've heard from the multitude of people who have been working on this is how successful they've been at identifying people who've moved to the state of Texas and needed to be registered to vote in Texas. Because if you move from outside the state to within this state, you need to get registered so that you can vote for the upcoming election. And so there's been a lot of effort, and that's been one of the contributing factors, that effort to try to identify those people. We have so many more registered voters in Texas for this election than we've had in the past, which I don't have the numbers in front of me. I apologize, but I think it was close to 3 million or somewhere around that ballpark of increase of voters that are registered for this election cycle. And I think towards the end of September, September 20th or 22nd to the deadline October 5th, there was a couple 100,000 that were registered within that window. So the work is being done up to, every deadline that is in this process. And definitely then, when you're working with organizations that are just doing generic get out the vote, you're trying to contact people to make sure that they're aware. It may not be for a particular campaign, but you want to make sure they're aware of the election. You want to make sure they're aware of the dates that are part of this particular election cycle, because it changes. If we're having our presidential election in November, or you may have local elections in May, whatever that is, the dates are going to be different. So you just want to continue to make those efforts to inform the public with some of the efforts that are being done with phone banking.
That's really true. Now, a little bit more about target audience. A lot of times the campaign staff I'll get to this in a minute, but when they talk to the volunteers at the beginning of the shift, they'll say, well, who we're calling are people who were the most likely to be vote Democrat and vote for our Democratic candidate. And there's a few ways that they can look at that. One is what the voting history is. Did they vote infrequently? Like, did they vote in 2018? Yes or no? Did they vote in 2016? Yes or no? So, if it's like, well, 16, yes, they voted. 18, no, they didn't vote. Well, okay, we know that they have voted, but they don't do it on a regular basis. So those are good people to call. And then, there's proxies you can use about whether they're likely Democrats, the precinct they live in, that sort of thing. So those are kind of some of the target audience components. Now, let's talk about, people who are phone banking. Well, I want to say this. Early voting, as we've talked about, is now underway. And seriously, to participate in this, I urge you to do this, because now you can have an impact on election results by volunteering and participating in a phone bank. Campaigns are really trying to reach potential supporters, like I was saying, during the pandemic. And phone banking is a good, safe way to do that. So there's never been a more important time to do phone banking. And I will tell you that it can be very rewarding. It makes a huge difference. I know that a lot of times people will call and, they get voicemail, they get hung up on, that kind of thing. So, it takes patience, it takes dedication, it takes, you just have to stick with it, endurance. But it helps. So how do you get good results in a phone bank? Well, of course, you pick your shift, and you may want to decide, well, I'm going to definitely stay in this shift for this period of time. But, give yourself, points or times when you want to just take a break and go get a drink of water. This one next is key. Get informed. Go to the candidate's website and the other sources and learn about that candidate. Get to know their background and their policy positions. It's important because you want to be able to respond to relevant questions from the people you call. Now, another thing you can do is practice. If you're using the open van system, you can create your account and everything, but then get in there once you're in and start calling. But before you do, read the script, make sure you've got it familiarized, and also, remember what you've learned from looking at their website. Making the calls, that's really important. Of course, you want to be kind and understanding. You want to, like I say, review the script and practice. There's a very well-known saying about it: smile while you dial, so that, it comes across to the voter that you're really sincere and you really want that person to identify with your candidate. You want to be respectful. If they can't talk, just say, okay, I understand. Have a nice day. And, you know, it's because it's important that you end the conversation on a positive note. And then, you know, what do you want to avoid? What I suggest is don't go too fast through your script, because you don't want to just start off with a, you know, super fast thing that people aren't going to listen to. Because a lot of times people make a decision, you know, within the first few sentences on whether or not they're going to keep listening or hang up the phone. So that's important. The other thing is, don't change the meaning of the script. The campaign staff has put some thought into the words they want in that script. So, you know, avoid going off topic, off the prompts in the script. The other thing is, of course, when you're talking to people, don't interrupt, let them finish their thoughts and then respond. And don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry, sir. Sorry, ma'am, I don't know. It's better to admit you don't know than to give incorrect information. You know, like I was saying a minute ago, candidates have websites, and you can refer the person you're talking to that website for more information.
And I think that's so key, to be comfortable with saying, I don't know. And there's these two important pieces that you've really highlighted. All of these are great tips in terms of being successful, and some things that people want to avoid. But really, being informed is just a good way to be prepared, but it definitely doesn't mean you've got to be the expert on everything. Being informed just helps you be able to pass information to people, and you have that ability. But if you don't have the information, saying, I don't know, referencing them to the candidate website or to other resources are totally fine. You know, it's a successful, you want to have a successful interaction with anybody that you're able to get on the phone with. And so whether you are the one at that moment who can provide and answer everything that they're asking, or you can provide them the resources so they can get the answer that they're looking for, those are both great successes. And I love how you just break this down in terms of, you know, some successful tips, things to avoid, you know, the things that we're looking for good results. And that's really the key, because a lot of people can say, well, early voting has already started. Mail-in voting has already been happening. There's 2 weeks till the election. I guess phone banks are done. But really what campaigns and what organizations are doing, and because we're voting so much and we're voting so early, the great opportunity that campaigns and organizations have is they can verify on their list of voters that they're trying to contact. Oh, the Secretary of State's data provides that information. This person's already voted. We don't have to contact them anymore for this particular cycle. They're checked off on our list, and we get to allocate our time and resources to the people who haven't voted yet. And every day, as the Secretary of State's information is updated on the voters that have completed that process, they get to then confirm it on their list and move on to the next voter. So it's really, really helping everybody voting early in the numbers that they're doing. But it also helps if you join a phone bank to help them continue to contact voters.
That's really true. You know, this period is it's been going on is GOTV, get out the vote. So this is about, like you say, reminding people, okay, we're in the middle of early voting. It goes through October 30th. You know, there's counties that can tell you, you know, right on their website, here are all the voting locations. Some counties can even tell you the waiting time at those voting locations, which is great. So you can tell people that, you know, the phone bankers, like I, you know, was doing with somebody who's in Travis County, where I would say, well, you know, Travis County, votetravis.com. Harris County is voteharris.com. Lots of these county websites are out there, and we'll be talking, you know, a lot of times that information is incorporated into the script for the phone banking. And here's the next thing that I think is really important that I do is learn from your phone bank experience. You know, after your shift is done, reflect on how you did and how you could improve your next phone bank call. You know, if you like in the Zoom meeting at the very end, there's a great opportunity to talk with the campaign staff and also some of the volunteers about your experiencing with the phone bank calls that you've made during your shift. You can talk to them about how did the dialer system or van system work. These are some of the people I called were real, some of them were real grouchy. How do you suggest I deal with grouchy people like that? And, there's other things that'll come up like, getting the right address to put up to say, this person wants a yard sign. We ask them, make sure you get it over there. So, you want to make sure that, you've taken the opportunity during that last Zoom meeting to talk to the campaign staff about things like that. Absolutely. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Robert.
Well, just kind of some final points here, but there's lots to talk about still. What's really important about this election cycle? Well, first of all, we'd rather have a different president than the one we have right now. It's important that we elect, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. There's also lots of other races like the Senate race with MJ Hager and John Cornyn, lots of congressional races. And I can tell you, I did a lot of volunteering for the Mike Siegel phone bank. His script is probably one of the best I've read. And he also uses a dialer. So there's, congressional races, but what's really key right now is the fact that there are about 17 House districts that have been identified as ones that could be easily flipped, because the last time there was an election, the Republican won by a very, very small margin. So those are kind of identified, and those can be the campaigns that you might want a phone bank for. We just need 9 more seats as Democrats to have a majority in the House. And that, of course, means redistricting, right? You have a House majority, House Democratic majority, then you can, turn things around and not have this horrible gerrymandering situation that we have. So wanted to mention just that the Beto O'Rourke organization, powered by people, they give you the chance to phone bank for Democratic House candidates. There are others too, and I think you know about them, Alex.
Yeah, and that's so key about the Texas House, because we want legislation to pass in the upcoming Texas legislature that's going to start in January 2021, and it only lasts till May of 2021. But we want that legislature to pass bills that are going to help improve the lives for all Texans, and that are going to make impacts that Texans are needing. So that could be whether it's education, healthcare, or whatever you are looking for an improvement in. And that process requires some very key elements, which is passing through the House, passing through the Senate, and getting signed by the governor. But if the House is flipped and there's a majority of Democrats in the House, well, then that helps those conversations and helps them to be able to come to some kind of agreement around some of the things that we know we're trying to advocate for within the state legislature. And so I love that emphasis around, these 9 seats are all that's left in order to be able to flip the Texas House, but there's actually 17 based on the last election that were so close. So it really feels like across Texas, people are really feeling like this is an attainable goal for this election cycle. The encouragement of all of the early voting that's happening is a huge encouragement. But once again, the election is on November 3rd. So it wasn't October 13th when in-person started. It wasn't today, October 18th, where some people may still be voting. It's November 3rd. So we've got to continue to get people out to vote, and we've got to continue to keep that enthusiasm going. And so similar to what Robert shared with Beto's Powered by People, which has a lot of great events, we're cataloging and accumulating a lot of those events happening in Texas on our website. So if you go to indivisible.textlege.org and go to our calendar, then you can see all of the events that we're accumulating within that space. And we have a link to it in our post. And so definitely let us know which effort you plan to join or which effort you were able to join in this upcoming week, because we'd love to hear from everybody and continue to share that enthusiasm and that excitement around getting the vote out. We have a chance to have a record a record election when it comes to voting in Texas. And that would just be exciting to see, by everybody.
It really would. One of the things that, and I've, this election cycle, I've done volunteer phone banking for about 6 different campaigns, House campaigns. A candidate up in the Fort Worth area. I know you're from Fort Worth. Yep. I grew up there, so that's very near and dear to my heart. A candidate in Central Houston, one in San Antonio, another one who's in Central Texas, another one who's in the Killeen area, Kiki Williams. And I can tell you, in all of those scripts, they all mention the candidate is fighting for the availability of affordable health care. Healthcare, they've all zeroed in on it, and it is such a good idea because it's something that is so important to voters, especially with COVID and the healthcare costs.
Being in the middle of a pandemic seems to prioritize healthcare, right?
Doesn't it? So they've all got that in their script, which I just think is great. So that, you learn a lot about what's going on in different areas of the state and different candidates by doing phone banks for them directly. The fastest way you can do that is go to our website and look up the House candidate races there. Powered by People is another one. And also, if there's just races that kind of grab you, like they did me, you can go to their website and indicate, yeah, you want to volunteer, please get back to me. And nowadays, they will get back to you fast because they need volunteers. Alex, is there anything else we should cover?
Yeah, let's take a quick drive to our website so that we can show people a couple of things we referenced. And so we have the calendar option here to where you can look at the different events that are accumulating on our calendar. But we've also added in our Flip Texas space, we have what we are calling the coalition, which is definitely not everybody who's doing work in Texas, but it's a lot of the organizations we've been in connection with throughout this election cycle. And we definitely look forward to connecting to more and more organizations with each future election cycle so that we can continue to collaborate and stay informed across the state around the work that's needed to be done. But within this page, you'll see all the different groups that are doing work to try to get out the vote and to flip the Texas House, to get people engaged. And if you visit any of their websites, they will also have their events and information that you can join and the different work that they're doing. And so definitely come check out our website and see the resources we've accumulated for you so that you can participate in phone banking in these final 2 weeks and truly, truly make a difference in this election.
That is so true. I've seen this in websites all over. If you want to have an impact on the outcome of our elections, now is the time to volunteer to phone bank. Don't put it off. Don't think that they're not doing any more phone banks. They're doing phone banks. Yeah. You can volunteer. Do it now.
Well, Robert, this has been a fantastic topic to talk about. And I just love how you have this information organized for everyone to kind of be able to digest what this experience is like, some fabulous tips, some understanding around the importance of this effort. So I can't thank you enough for all of the amazing research you always do for Indivisible Text Ledge, but for Texans as a whole as we get to share this with everybody. So huge, huge thanks, Robert.
Well, you're absolutely welcome. You know, there's no better forum than Indivisible Text Lege, in my opinion. And you do a great job managing this, Alex. So, you know, onward and upward.
Absolutely. Thanks, Robert. Hope you have a great day.
You too.